Marsha in Translation is written and performed by Roxana Triffin and explores the experience of a trans-migrant actor coming to Australia. It uses her translation and her performance skills to unpack the history and text of Chekhov's Three Sisters and as a metaphor for the translation and performance required to find a way to fit in with a new country and a new culture. Filmed at TheatreWorks, it opens with titles giving a definition of displacement superimposed over images from an early production of Three Sisters as eerie, haunting music plays. One of the cast in these photos is clearly a young Triffin earlier in her acting career. A final caption in these opening quotes, Patrice Pavis telling us that theatre translation is never what you expect it to be, not in words, but in gesture, not in letter, but in the spirit of a culture. There then follows footage of a bitter storm blowing over a snow-covered landscape and a scattering of small houses, buffeted by the wind. Triffin's voice recites over this landscape, telling us that this is not a performance, but the word inscribed on flesh by the act of making theatre. She acknowledges that her training as a performer at a fairly conservative institution in the 90s perhaps makes her concept of performance outdated, but gives her bona fides by listing the thinkers that she has read, including Bakhtin, Merleau-Ponty, Husserl, and more. Her experience as an East European migrant woman, she tells us, all too often results in her voice being negated or silenced. Violins replace the noise of the storm and the image fades to a darkened stage, onto which Triffin enters with a suitcase in hand. Out of the suitcase, she takes that well-worn signifier of Eastern European drama, and Chekhov in particular, no, not a gun, but an antique samovar. As she polishes it, she talks to the audience, questioning if she needs her memories, even what memories are. Are they nothing but fiction, a fictionalization of the past? Is she her past? Does the past even exist? She tells us she cleans the samovar every time she feels the urge to talk with her grandmother. After these introductions to the history and philosophy of Triffin's work, a more concrete drama emerges as an Australian border guard, played by Jim Daly, appears and demands her passport. On seeing her Romanian origins, he tells her that she comes from Dracula country and does a vampire impersonation at her. Ugh, cringe. It's so hard to believe that there are still so many white Australians out there who would see this as good-natured ribbing rather than the internalised racism that it really is. The guard also tells Triffin that she comes from a second-class country and that she can't be sure that she's actually healthy and she needs to have health checks before entering Australia. She's naturally outraged, but returns with a second passport, this time Italian, and the guard is more receptive. Still, though, he's incredulous at her profession. He asks what she hopes to contribute and tells her that professional actors are the ones that work on Neighbours. He wants to know from her, what is acting good for? And that's a good question. And so she performs a scene from Three Sisters, first in English, then in French, then Italian and Russian. It's not an uncommon representation of this immigration system, literally auditioning for her acceptance into the country. Triffin compares leaving one's country with a breakup, describing how a breakup that is not your fault causes you to question, to analyse what went wrong. Sitting on the other side of the world, she wonders what went wrong with her country that she had to leave. Sadly, the quality of the footage is not terrific. It's grainy and at a distance, though the sound is pretty clear. Digital presentation of theatre work is almost certainly going to be vital as the world enters its post-pandemic phase. Not only to safeguard against future lockdowns, be they for COVID-19 or something worse that lurks ahead of us, but also as a way to reach audiences that can't come to the theatre for whatever reason. The reality of this, however, is that it's not cheap. This is what Simon Abrahams was talking about in my interview with him. Independent artists need access to good gear, lighting, sound recording equipment, and a team of people to record and edit the work. It can't just be one more thing left to the artist to have to deal with. Otherwise, it will simply become another barrier to making new work and reaching new audiences. Another thing that will shrink our community and undermine our industry. Still, it's a heartfelt performance and uses the meta-theatrical nature of the deconstructed Marsha in clever ways. Triffin is a charming and easy-to-watch performer who tells a good story intended to make the audience think, which is exactly what it does.